Thank you. There is a briefing underway at the Pentagon.
Let's go back to NBC News for that, and we'll rejoin you in a few minutes.
Senior officials say there is no doubt that this war is underway. There is no doubt in our minds as well. When you see anti-aircraft fire over Baghdad and see the kinds of explosions that we've seen in the background, and now the Defense Department video of the cruise missiles being launched, plainly, war is underway, but not in a way that we expected it to go off. The first shot to be fired at Saddam Hussein, effectively. NBC's David Bloom is with the 3rd Infantry. That's the mechanized division that will be the tip of the spear as they go across the border between Iraq and Kuwait. He's one of the embedded journalists. David, what about unusual activity where you are?
Well, Tom, it's interesting because you just said that there can be no doubt that war is underway. But certainly here, right at the Kuwaiti-Iraqi border with these ground forces, you would doubt that it's underway. We're, of course, about 350 miles south of Baghdad here, and no indication whatsoever of any imminent beginnings to the ground war. As you mentioned, we're with the U.S. Army's 3rd Infantry Division. The 315 Infantry is who we're with. So what you see is a lot of fighting vehicles. You can see some of the soldiers just standing around here milling about. This Bradley would normally contain about 9 infantry soldiers. Off in the distance behind me, you can see the Abrams tanks, the M1A1 Abrams tanks, the 70-ton tanks. But right here on the border, and these forces moved to this location yesterday to be in what they call attack position, ready to move on a half-hour's notice. But there's been no indication whatsoever that the ground war, at least in this territory that we're in, is anywhere near beginning. To the contrary, these troops have been told to be ready to move out on a half-hour's notice. There have been some indications that it might be perhaps not imminent, that it might be a day or two away, but certainly now the timetable may be moving up. There's a meeting with the commanders here in about a half an hour or so, and we'll certainly get more information at that point. But at this juncture, at this location, no sign that the U.S. ground offensive is about to begin. Tom?
David, put the telephone back so you can hear the next question, which is, did you see any unusual air activity in your region?
We have not, Tom. We've seen, in the last few days, and I mentioned this before, we've seen the A-10 Warthogs, the Thunderbolts, but they're better known as the Warthogs, which fly the close air support. What we did hear, and this is interesting, Tom, last night, is we could hear the Predator drones flying above us. It's that sort of low-flying sound, that buzzing sound, it's obviously a pilotless plane flying above us, and we could hear the Predator drones every couple hours flying back and forth. That was the only indication, in retrospect, that perhaps the air war was about to begin, because we had not seen the Predators flying above us until then.
All right, thanks very much. NBC's David Bloom. We'll let you get back to your duties there. We want to remind you that the war against Iraq has been underway now for a couple of hours. We heard confirmation tonight, first from the Pentagon, NBC Jim Miklaszewski, then Ari Fleischer, the president's press spokesman, confirmed it in the White House press briefing. The president came on the air at 10:15 tonight. We were first aware of it, obviously, at around 9:32 when live cameras in the capital city of Baghdad began to pick up Iraqi air defense firing and then explosions in the background. You're going to hear on this recording from earlier tonight, Peter Arnett, who is working for the National Geographic Explorer and NBC News, describing what he was seeing and hearing, and then we'll talk to Peter about what it's like now.
Hello, Tom. I don't know if you can hear me, but there's sirens sounding all over Baghdad as of this moment. It's about an hour before dawn here. Sirens sounding, but no sounds of missiles or anti-aircraft fire. This could be a pre-warning of an attack. No sign of any attack, but it could be a pre-warning. The sirens have now died down. In the Gulf War 12 years ago, there was a similar series of sirens before the actual bombing began.
And Peter, what about the conditions on the ground in Baghdad? Were you seeing any overt signs of anti-aircraft defenses being moved on?
The first anti-aircraft fire I am seeing in the sky now directly in front of me, Tom, and the eastern side of the city, scattered fire, not very visible, but the first scattered fire. In the city itself, a few police cars zooming through the streets. The lights of the city are still on. Other than that, no activity. But it's really get a sense here of an impending attack.
And the attack did go on, although not in the dimensions that Peter witnessed in 1991, because it was more surgical tonight, aimed at what we're told was Saddam Hussein and what appeared to be a leadership meeting. Peter, what happens to you now? Are you in touch with Iraqi officials?
Well, actually, Tom, we're being advised, I think, along with all the other journalists, to go to the information ministry now for a meeting. Of course, the war is on. I presume we will get some instructions of how we're to act now. I would remind you that in the Gulf War, within basically 24 hours of or less, within 17 hours, there was a form of censorship imposed on us. Just a reflection on the targeting tonight of Saddam Hussein. You know, I did report that there were sirens in the city, 20 minutes before the bombing, or at least 15 minutes. So, Saddam Hussein's people would have heard those sirens. They were showing something. Maybe, he had that warning, and conceivably he would have made an escape. But certainly the city did know something was going on well before those planes hit those targets, Tom.
All right, thanks very much, Peter Arnett. Check back with us after your meeting at the Information Ministry if you can. And are you going to be taken there by Iraqi government officials, or do you make your own way?
We will make our own way. The streets there's traffic beginning again. The streets are not crowded. There are not many people walking. Clearly the word is out that the action has begun. But we will simply drive there ourselves. It's only a 7-minute drive, and we'll try to get back to you later, Tom.
All right, thanks very much, Peter Arnett in Baghdad, who's going off to the Information Ministry. Let's go to NBC Jim Miklaszewski now at the Pentagon. Jim?
Tom, U.S. intelligence officials had told NBC News well before tonight's airstrikes against Baghdad that what Peter Arnett is now describing is exactly the kind of tactic that they expected Saddam Hussein to employ once airstrikes would begin. And that's why there was some concern among the U.S. military and a warning to journalists in Iraq that they should consider leaving because the Information Ministry, after all, is Saddam Hussein's primary form of communication to people in Iraq, what the U.S. military, of course, would describe as Saddam Hussein's propaganda, and would be high on a U.S. target list. So there was some concern that Saddam Hussein might try to use journalists as human shields. Now, in this case tonight, we're being advised that the airstrikes against Baghdad are apparently over for the time being. As we had talked about earlier, the targets struck tonight were targets of opportunity after a leadership target, we're told, Saddam Hussein himself in a meeting in a bunker inside Baghdad. So as far as we know, there will be no further airstrikes against Baghdad, at least in the foreseeable future. But I got to tell you, when I was sitting here listening to Peter, it sounded rather ominous to me. And what these intelligence officials had told us early on just came back to me in a heartbeat.
All right, thanks very much. NBC Jim Miklaszewski at the Pentagon tonight. Edward Peck was the former ambassador of the United States to Iraq, 1978 to 1980. He's been openly critical of the president's plans to go against Saddam Hussein and to wage war against Iraq.
Okay, that is the latest from NBC as we continue to monitor NBC as we move on through our 10 o'clock newscast here.
It's almost 7:30 in the morning in Kuwait. Let's check now with Lisa Spencer for a look at the weather there.